3 often overlooked legacy planning documents, next on Retiring Today. This is Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren Merkle. He's a certified financial planner, a certified financial fiduciary, and a retirement income certified professional. Today, we're talking about how you have to rethink things as you get closer to retirement, and we're focusing on legacy planning. Loren, retirement in itself is a mindset shift.
Retirement is a mindset shift because you're going to be engaging in things that you've never had to engage in before. You're going to have to make decisions that you've never had to make before. So, of course, we have to start rethinking all of the different financial ways that we make decisions. Just if we take it to the basic, I mean, you're not going to be making money from the employer anymore, so you're going to have to figure out a way to supply yourself an income from your investments, Social Security, and or pension, so you can still engage in the lifestyle that you want to because it's not coming from the employer. So there's a lot of different things that are taking place, decisions you never had to make. We have to rethink all of the different ways we process this information.
Yeah, we've put all the different ways you have to rethink retirement into a series of workshops. It's called our Rethink Retirement series. The website is on your screen right now. If you go there, you'll see some great resources about income, healthcare, taxes, and more when it comes to rethinking retirement. But today, we're going to focus on legacy planning. So first, let's go ahead and just define what is a legacy, what is a legacy plan?
A legacy is any of the financial assets that you might have to pass on once you do pass away. And a lot of people will think, well, I don't have a whole lot, so do I really have a legacy? If you have anything, we're talking about vehicles, we're talking about collectibles, things that you might cherish that you want to go to a specific person, the 401k plan, the IRA, any of those types of investments could be things that you pass on once you do pass away. You want to make sure that goes where you want it to go, how you want it to get there, and that's why we need to develop a legacy plan, which would involve some legal documents to make sure everything does go as planned.
Yeah, we want to get to those 3 often overlooked documents because that's a really important conversation we're going to have today. But what we want to help you do is get ready for retirement. We know that it's a mindset shift. Loren in the Retirement Planner series helped people retire several times, so they know what's coming, but you don't because you haven't retired before. So before we help people kind of think about the mindset shift, let's talk about where they might currently be thinking or where they might currently be at when it comes to legacy planning. And one thing, Loren, that you hear a lot is that legacy planning is for the ultra wealthy.
It's for the ultra wealthy. I don't have a big yacht, so I don't need a legacy plan, right? That's the mentality. That's not true at all. If you have any financial assets that you care about that you want to go to a charity or a loved one, means that you have a need for a legacy plan. And it could be $50,000 or $25,000. It doesn't really matter what the dollar amount is. The dollar amount and what your intentions are could determine what types of documents you incorporate within your overall legacy plan. But everybody has a legacy, therefore everybody needs a plan.
And another current mindset that you sometimes hear is, I don't need a legacy plan, I'm going to spend it all.
I'm going to spend my last dollar on my last day. I'm going to bounce that last check I write.
Oh, that's interesting. How do you time that out?
We do hear that.
Yeah.
That's a good plan, but that's the point, is you tell me when your last day is, and this whole retirement planning thing becomes a lot easier. The problem is most of us have no idea when our last day is, and that's probably a good thing.
Yes, I think so, yes.
We don't know, so whenever it is that you do pass, most likely is going to be something left over, and again, you want it to go where you want it to go the most efficient way possible. That plan does not work that well for most people.
And another current mindset that you might have, and some people have, is that a will is enough.
A will, a lot of people think that a will take care of everything. I have a legacy plan because I have a will. And a will is a basic document that is a good place to start. Sometimes you can finish with a will if you combine some beneficiary designations, but many people in most cases will actually need to go a step further than the will. The will can accommodate some of the wishes that you have, but certainly it's not all inclusive.
So to help people get ready for retirement, we want to help them start thinking about how they're going to shift their mindset when it comes to legacy planning. So let's talk about mindset shift number 1 is, and that is, there's a plan, and then in parentheses though, even if it's not yours.
The plan is either yours, or if you don't have a plan, the state that you live in certainly has a plan for you. So for those of you in the state of Iowa, You pass away without a plan. It's called you pass away intestate. And the state of Iowa's plan is very linear, which means if you have kids, it's going to be proportionally distributed to your kids, whether or not that's what you intended. If you don't have kids and you still have parents alive, it'll be proportionally designated up to your parents. And if you don't have parents and kids, it'll be spread out based on the relationships that you still have alive, cousins, nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. That may be exactly what you intended to have happen to the assets that you had left over, but it may not have. When we're talking about something so important and final, we want to make sure, you want to make sure that it's going to happen exactly the way that you intended to happen.
And we hope that when people watch this show, they learn something. We want them to say, hey, I learned something new today. And I think when you talk about the will versus the trust, there's a lot to learn. And there's some misconceptions that I think, are going to do a really good job of shoring up for us.
There are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the will and the trust, and we're going to talk about some of those misconceptions. There's 3 primary misconceptions about the will and the trust. And the first one is whatever passes through the will passes through what is called probate. Now, probate, what it is, it's just a legal process to make sure that anything that you have spelled out in the will is going to take place. The disadvantage of probate is it can be more costly on the back end. Setting up a will is not all that expensive in the state of Iowa. Most attorneys, they could charge you somewhere around $250, maybe upwards to $1,000. So it's not all that much to create a will, but it can cost you a bundle on the backside. Anything that goes through probate, most probatable estates in the state of Iowa have to hire an attorney. That attorney can charge up to 2%, and then you have court costs and miscellaneous costs that could add up to 1%. So just think about anything that goes through the will process, the probate process, could cost about 3% of your estate. If you have a trust, one of the benefits of a trust is it bypasses probate. So you don't have to hire an attorney in most cases. You may still choose to, but you don't have to, so you can avoid that up to 2% cost. And then the court fees won't be so costly, so maybe you can avoid that 1% or up to that 1% cost. So on the backside, once you pass, it may not be as expensive for the estate to have assets go through the trust as what it would be if you didn't have the trust and it went through probate. Now, the disadvantage of the trust is it does cost you more to set up. The attorney is going to charge you more for the trust than they would the will. And in most cases, when you have a trust, you're also going to have a will. So you're going to have the will, and then you're going to have the trust. The trust is going to be that primary document, and the way that most of your assets transition to your loved ones and charities, and the will catch everything that the trust does not. So the cost is a big difference, a little bit more on the front side to set up a trust than the will, but it can save the estate a whole bunch on the backside. The other difference is from a privacy standpoint. Anything that goes through the probate process is public. And in fact, there has to be 2 public notices of everything that's going to go through probate, and there has to be time separating those public notices. So creditors can make their claim. Everybody can see who wants to see what is going through the probate process. In the trust, it can be a private transaction. And this is really important for those who don't want all of your assets to be publicized or for people to look at what it is that you're passing on. So this is a really appealing aspect of the trust for many people, especially those who want to be a little bit more private as far as what you are passing on to whom. So the 3 big differences between the will and the trust, the cost is a big one, the private transaction, and then of course the ease of transfer. In the state of Iowa, anything that goes through probate, the minimum amount of time frame for it to transition through the probate process is about 6 months. But if you've had any experience with probate, it could be 12, 18 months plus.
More on the legacy planning mindset shift next.
You dream of a happy retirement, but there are some big questions to answer first. Do I have enough saved? When should I take Social Security? How will I pay for health care and keep up with inflation? Go to MerkleRetire.com to schedule a 15-minute retirement checkup call to talk directly with a retirement planner and get answers to your important retirement questions. The first step to your retirement starts with a 15-minute retirement checkup call.
Do I have enough saved for retirement? When should I take Social Security? Which Medicare option is best? How do I plan for inflation? Sometimes the road to retirement starts with more questions than answers. We're here to help. Join us for our upcoming Journey to Retirement workshop. Get answers and start your retirement journey with confidence. Our online workshop includes information on Secure Act 2.0 and changing retirement rules. Visit retirewithmerkle.com to register for an upcoming workshop. Your retirement journey starts now.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. I am here with Loren Merkle, and we are talking about legacy planning and how you have to rethink a lot of what you thought before retirement when it comes to legacy planning. Let's go back to that example. You did a good job, I thought, Loren, of telling us the difference between a will and a trust. But I had to tell you, there's a word I kind of get stopped up on, and it's the word estate. Because again, when I hear
It's so fancy.
I know, when I hear estate, I think, oh, that's rich people stuff.
Yeah.
Rich people have estates. But
many attorneys will say that if your total value of assets equates to $50,000 or more, and again, this is in the state of Iowa, then you do have an estate, and you have an estate that you need to start planning for. And one of the reasons why is because the state of Iowa has a rule that says if your probatable estate is north of $50,000, then it is a mandatory requirement that your estate hires an attorney. And then that's where that 2% cost comes into, like I was talking about at the board. And that's where a lot of the complications in this time frame and the whole probate thing really comes into play if you don't have the proper documents in place. Now, a trust is not right for everybody, but you need to determine if it is right for you and what kind of role it may or may not play within your overall legacy plan.
let's talk about mindset shift number 2. Plan now for your loved ones.
We want to plan now because somebody's going to have to plan. Again, the state is going to plan for you. You're going to plan for you. And if the state plans for you, then it's up to your kids, your loved ones, to react. And in that kind of state of mind where they're grieving for the loss of their parents or their loved ones, you don't want them to also have to jump through all of these legal hoops that they've never had to jump through before. They have very little knowledge about, and now they are reliant upon an attorney or somebody, a friend, or some word of mouth that they have to make all of these financial decisions, and things get really messy. We see this time and time again, unfortunately, and this is why we really need to get that plan in place so somebody else doesn't have to pick up the pieces of the puzzle later.
And I think I've heard you say this before, that this motivates a lot of the people that you sit down with, a lot of the families and individuals we work with, because they're in that age where their parents are passing away. And if they have had to go through that process and their parents didn't have a plan, they want to make sure that their kids don't have to do the same thing.
With the families and individuals that we serve, we put together the full comprehensive plan, and a legacy plan is a part of that full comprehensive plan. But most people really don't start to get serious with their legacy plan until you live through an experience that is rather unpleasant. And many people come to us, and that's when they really get serious about it, because they had a parent who didn't maybe put all of the plans in place, and the parent passes away, and then 6 months later, they're still trying to fit these pieces of the puzzle together and solve the puzzle, this probate puzzle, 12 months later, sometimes even 18 plus months. And they see all the work and effort that goes into it when really they just want to grieve. They want to process the experience that they just went through with their loved ones, and yet they're distracted by all the nuance that goes into the settling of an estate.
I think it's worth noting, too, that putting some of a legacy plan in place is also beneficial to your spouse if you're married. We're talking a lot about your kids, but there are some other things, and it's maybe not so much the will and the trust, but there are some other things that you talk to people about, because a lot of people come to you, Loren, and they say, I just want to make sure my spouse is taken care of when I'm gone. And there are things you can do to help ease that burden for the surviving spouse.
Recently, there was a couple we met with, and the gentleman, we'll just call him John. John said, I want to make sure that we can have the retirement that we want to have while we're alive, But when I pass away, I want to make sure that my wife can have the retirement that she deserves as well. And that is one of the number one concerns for married couples is how do we enjoy this together, right? They've spent a lifetime or many years in many cases building what you have. You want to enjoy it to your full capacity, but then you also want to make sure for whomever is left that they can still have the lifestyle that they want to as well. That takes planning. That can happen by accident, but you want to make sure with something as important as that it does happen, and that does take planning.
So we promised 3 often overlooked documents, and these are important. So let's just go through them by one, because a lot of people don't think about these, probably because they don't know all the details and why they're so important. So that's what we want you to learn today is about these documents and why they may be important for you to have as part of your legacy plan. Let's first talk about the medical power of attorney.
The medical power of attorney, this is a document that will be used while you're alive. In fact, when you pass away, it's no longer valid. But the medical power of attorney will give somebody whom you trust medical decision-making ability. So you become incapacitated, you can no longer make medical decisions on your own behalf. This individual can step in and make decisions based on the directives that you put into, in most cases, a live-in will, or sometimes the medical power of attorney as well will spell out what this person can or cannot do. But it's ultimately imperative to make sure that somebody you trust, who is as knowledgeable as they can be about the medical decisions that they can or cannot make, has that power, and then that way you're not as dependent upon the hospital or the doctors to make those types of decisions for you.
The next one is a financial power of attorney.
Very similar to the medical power of attorney, except for the financial documents. So individuals who can make financial decisions for you. Do you need to take distributions to continue to pay the taxes for the property, the insurance, keep the lifestyle going, or are there other decisions, financial decisions that need to be made? This would be encapsulated within that financial power of attorney. And oftentimes the direct abilities that this individual that you're granting these powers, those abilities will be highlighted in that document as well.
And that's while you're living, correct? That one?
That also is while you're living, and it becomes invalid once you do pass away.
And the third document we have is a revocable trust. How's that a little bit different than what you outlined on the board?
The revocable trust is exactly what the name describes. You can change it. You can revoke it. You can get rid of it. You can amend the details within that trust. Once you pass, it becomes permanent. So once you pass away, nobody can change it, and then the directions that you put in that trust should be played out through the trustee that you designate in the trust. So within the trust, you're going to designate this is an individual or individuals that you trust to be the trustee to execute the orders that you have within that trust.
And one thing to talk about maybe with the trust, to think about anyways, is it can be important for blended families or maybe if you're on a second marriage as well.
The blended family situation is more prevalent than what it ever has been before. Recently, I was meeting with a married couple. They've been together for about 7 years, but they both have kids outside of that particular marriage. And they said to me, both, and they were in agreement, let's call them again, John and Sue. John said, I want to make sure that Sue is taken care of if I pass away, but also once Sue passes away, this I want to go to my kids. Sue said the same thing. Sue said if she passes away, she wants John to be taken care of, but then she wants her assets to go to her kids. Again, that doesn't happen by accident. You need to take specific steps to make sure that does happen. And this blended family situation is more prevalent than it ever has been before. And if you're in a blended family situation, you want to make sure that you're both in agreement to as much as you can be, because not always do you agree.
What? No, that never happens in my marriage.
Never happens. But the legal documents that you put together do need to be coherent, and they need to represent what each one of you are feeling. So those conversations aren't necessarily fun. But I can tell you, working through it now, prior to something taking place, is a way better experience than you passing away and then having the kids fight for it or have to deal with all of the mess that you leave by not putting the plan together.
Yes, and working through it now when you're not under duress of someone's health failing or duress of, all the other things that could be happening, working through it and with a neutral party too, either your attorney and or your retirement planner who can kind of look at it through a lens that maybe can help you make some decisions.
Yeah, or even divorce. We're talking about death, but what if you get divorced? The gray divorce is a real thing. There's a lot more baby boomers getting divorced than ever have been before while things are still good and cohesive. If you can put these things in place for those what ifs, pass away, divorce, whatever that is, the outcome will be more desirable than if you do not.
This is all part of our Rethink Retirement series conversation. The website is on your screen right now. We've got workshops there. They help get you ready for retirement. They help you get ready for this mindset shift that is this exciting time in your life. There's a video about healthcare. There's a workshop that is about healthcare, taxes, and much more. We still have one more mindset shift to talk about next.
Do I have enough saved for retirement? When should I take Social Security? Which Medicare option is best? How do I plan for inflation? Sometimes the road to retirement starts with more questions than answers. We're here to help. Join us for our upcoming Journey to Retirement workshop. Get answers and start your retirement journey with confidence. Our online workshop includes information on Secure Act 2.0 and changing retirement rules. Visit retirewithmerkle.com to register for an upcoming workshop. Your retirement journey starts now.
Anytime I have even the smallest question about my accounts or what effect the latest tax law might have on my situation, the Merkle Retirement Planning team is always there and quick to help. I'm so glad they treat you like family. I'm so happy to have such an excellent team working for my future and ensuring I do the best to achieve my financial goals.
Merkle Retirement Planning. Your retirement starts here.
Welcome back. I'm here with Loren Merkle, and we are talking about retirement, how you have to rethink retirement, and it's a mindset shift as you get closer to retirement. Mindset shift number 3 when it comes to your legacy is getting organized.
We have to get organized because if you want to ensure that what you want to have happen once you pass away will actually happen, getting organized is the best way to do that. And when we talk about organized, we're talking about in writing. So when you pass away, your loved ones, your kids can come in and they can pick up from square one and advance much quicker than if they're trying to piece everything together from scratch. Meaning if they gained access to one checking account and then they could see some other credit cards were there, then they had to go track down those credit cards. If you had it all in writing in as much detail as you can, it will be much easier for the kids.
And if you had to give advice to people on a place to start, it would be beneficiaries.
The beneficiaries is easy. One of the hardest parts about legacy planning is where do you start? This is a great place to start, and beneficiary changes all the time. Even if you don't initiate the change, there's a story, it's been a couple years ago now, but a gentleman came in for the very first time. His wife passed away 3 months prior. She had 2 401k plans, one with an existing employer, one with an old employer, both about $500,000. So $1 million of retirement assets, neither one of those 401k plans had beneficiary designation. So here he is 3 months later, still trying to gain access to $1 million of their retirement money when all that had to have happen is beneficiaries on those 401k plans, and it would have been an easy transition. So now, not only was he grieving for a young spouse, I mean, he was mid-50s at the time, unexpected. He was going through that grieving process and the struggles of trying to transition this $1 million of money that they had saved. And it doesn't have to be that hard, but a lot of times with 401k plans, beneficiaries can change even though you didn't make a change, because custodians can change. Maybe it was with company A and now it changed to company B, and then the beneficiaries didn't transition over. That is something that you need to pay attention to and watch on a consistent basis.
So it's almost like beneficiaries can somehow get eliminated. Not necessarily
not change.
The name wouldn't change, but a new custodian comes in and they don't get your beneficiaries transferred over with all of your account stuff?
Yeah, the beneficiary designation didn't transfer. So now where your 401k plan is, you look at the beneficiaries and it says no beneficiary. And that's what can lead to a lot of mayhem if you don't catch it prior to passing away.
Okay, so what can somebody do right now to make sure that some of this does not happen to them?
Make sure that you have, you go through a beneficiary check, all the different accounts that you have, but also create a plan. One of the things we do for the families and individuals we serve is we write a comprehensive plan for them. So it covers the income plan, the legacy, the investment, the tax, covers all pillars of the plan. Something happens to them, they pass away, and then their kids can come in, or the survivors, and they can see all of the detail. But they also have our contact information, so they can contact us, and that's probably the best place to start for them. And then we can help them with all of those different matters that need to take place once somebody does pass away.
Yeah, so you also write down not only kind of this investment side of things, but you guys help people if they want to get organized with emergency contacts and some of the other things that are part of that legacy piece of the binder.
Yeah, it's a part of that overall plan. So in the back, they can put their will, they can put their trust documents, power of attorneys, any of their information. If they have a spreadsheet of the different bank accounts that they have or credit cards that they do have and contact information, all of that can be located in there, which is a lot easier. It's not uncommon for somebody to come to us and say, I had a life insurance policy, or my parents passed away and they had a life insurance policy, and it took us 3 months to find that policy. Well, what happens if they never found it? Yeah. Or what happens if they found it 2 years later? I mean, there's a whole lot of things that can happen when your loved ones who survive you don't know. So just get them in the know. The easiest way is a written, organized plan.
Yeah, I know I've heard stories where someone has said, I think my aunt might have left me life insurance, but I don't know, and I don't know what company. And then the retirement planners try to help people track things down. Sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. So it just leaves too much up to chance.
Yeah, and sometimes you call the companies and you don't really talk to somebody who might know what is going on, and they give you misinformation. Life insurance companies get bought and sold all the time. So maybe it's a life insurance company that existed 30 years ago but got bought 3 different times, and tracking that down, it's very cumbersome, which is why you want to make it as easy as possible now while you can.
And I think, Loren, with a lot of this stuff, it's kind of, where do I start? This feels a little overwhelming, getting all my beneficiaries updated and maybe getting going on a comprehensive retirement plan. But I think the Rethink Retirement series, the workshops, is a great way to get started on thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah, because we go into detail, and they're all about 30 to 40 minutes long, so it's not a big investment of time. It doesn't cost you any money. You can view this information from the comfort of your own home, and we go into detail on each one of those 6 pillars. So if legacy planning is important to you, watch the legacy planning one. If tax planning is important to you, watch the tax planning one. What you're going to notice, though, is there is overlap. The decisions you make on your legacy plan can impact your tax plan, can impact your income plan, it can impact your investment plan. So you're going to notice some overlap, but all of it is going to be valuable information that you can use to help you on your way to into retirement.
You can go to rethinkretirementseries.com right now to view those online workshops. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Do I have enough saved for retirement? When should I take Social Security? Which Medicare option is best? How do I plan for inflation? Sometimes the road to retirement starts with more questions than answers. We're here to help. Join us for our upcoming Journey to Retirement workshop. Get answers and start your retirement journey with confidence. Our online workshop includes information on Secure Act 2.0 and changing retirement rules. Visit retirewithmerkle.com to register for an upcoming workshop. Your retirement journey starts now.